Hi guys, welcome to the Bogey Man podcast. We are lucky today to be joined by the US Mid-Am Champ 2022, Matt McClean. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Firstly, today, we've had a good old day of it today. We're in Castlerock. We've had 27 holes and it's fair to say it's a pretty impressive place. I think we were pretty shocked by what we got from the 9-hole course here, weren't we?
Yeah, definitely the outer 9 or the spare 9, if you're sort of sold as. Some of the holes were as good as any golf course you'll play in Ireland, so it's nice as an extra bonus just to go out and enjoy them pretty free to ourselves and in lovely weather.
Yeah, I don't know about you, I actually really like winter golf on days like today where it's tees are slightly forward and the place is in great nick in fairness to it. Where you can just go and just have a bit of fun, but this type of place where it's not necessarily one that you might see a huge amount of tourists on, but would definitely be something you will come to and to just enjoy a day like today. Like we're looking out over the course from the top of the clubhouse here, and it's ideal, to be honest.
Yeah, I think in terms of sort of winter golf, it's more what you expect. Your expectations are so low that you may get blown off. You might not get to play at all. And then to have a day like today, it sort of, makes it all the more enjoyable than, some summer day. So, and as you said, the course was fantastic, pretty dry. Obviously I had to use mats, but it comes with the territory with links golf in the winter. But yeah, when you get days like this, it's hard to beat any time of the year in Ireland.
Because in fairness, you've had this is probably one of the down days, and you're playing golf on one of your down days. Let's face it, you've had a fairly hectic 2022. That basically started, as you were saying, I think, was it back in South Africa in January, the year kicked off? Yeah,
we've played start of January. I think it was working up to start of January, and then had a couple of weeks off practicing in Gran Canaria, and then, as you said, I think it was the start of February, end of January, we were away in South Africa for 3 weeks, and maybe barring three or four weeks here or there throughout the year with work. It's been pretty much full-time golf. It hasn't felt like there's been too many down times or quiet times without that. But I sort of said a couple of years ago in COVID, when we were missing everything and you're just wishing you could get out to play these tournaments, I thought when it came back to it, just play as much as you can, as long as you're feeling okay physically and mentally to play the tournaments.
You mentioned something there, and we'll go into kind of 2022, the actual golf side, because obviously it was a massive year in that regard. But like coming from Malone, from the club there, I suppose it's where did the love of this, where did the want to be effectively as close as a full-time player or a player at an elite level, where did that come from? Is there something, I suppose, inherently built into the club that was there, or has it come from the family, or where did you start in that journey?
Yeah, I played a lot of sports growing up, so I was pretty much football, Gaelic, small bit of hurling, just too many injuries, so just give that up pretty quickly. And then golf as well from 10 or 11. So I played all sports really, just anything sort of competitive and in nature. I enjoyed it. So golf is one of those sports that's sort of endlessly frustrating, but again, you keep on going, come back every day. So I stuck with golf in the end and always just sort of, looked up to the guys from when I was 16, 17, the amateurs back in the day, Paul Cutler and those sorts of guys, and always thought that would be a pretty good place to try to get to and sort of enjoy the golf along the way. Whether or not the idea to be turned pro at any point, it was never really an ultimatum to say you have to do it by this stage or not. If you get to the stage where you can turn pro, or it's an option, I probably would. If it's not, then it's not the end of the world either. I'll just stick to the amateur golf.
Yeah, because you're not in the truest sense where you're not a full-time amateur. You do work as well, and that's kind of it has to be. I suppose people are, with a lot of the younger guys who are in college, they've gone through the US route, etc. They come out and they'll be effectively full-time amateurs from the time they leave Ireland at 18. Some of them even before that. They don't do any other sport. They don't work. It's golf. We were chatting earlier on the course, and you were saying that actually you're an optometrist by profession, so allows you probably flexibility, and that was one of the reasons that you actually chose it, because it was going to allow you flexibility. So obviously golf is at the forefront. You were conscious that, I want to play golf full-time, but at the same time a career with the safety net that provides is there.
Yeah, it's probably an argument from each side to say what benefits you get from doing it either way. Going straight into university and playing competitive golf at university and then coming out in your early 20s and competing, there's an advantage to that the early you sort of get better, the more sort of chance you have to grow as a golfer. But to have a safety net can be good in terms of it relaxes you. Another way to look at it is that if you have a safety net, then you may not have as much sort of strive to, go as far as you could. But I chose the sort of the latter option in terms of you go and sort of get the university degree, work for a couple of years, and you have that job and that profession to sort of use as you're going along with the amateur golf as well. So I think both ways are options. I think if you look at the numbers now, probably straight into America and going amateur is 99% of the guys' route. So, but it's I'd say it's probably more successful in terms of what professional comes out.
Right.
In terms of there's not too many guys in the last sort of 10 years who probably went to university and got a degree and practiced or worked for a couple of years.
And is that as their product of their environment in terms of the full-time golf element or the actual courses that they're playing? Because if you stay in Ireland, you're an amateur. As we were chatting, the Irish Close is the only event with Mullingar that you'll play on a parkland course where scores are really low that you have to go after. Whereas chatting about all the championships this year, and there were a lot of them were a war of attrition.
Yeah.
Really, in the best sense of the word. But
there's that sort of side of things where if, for instance, the last few times we went to South Africa, the winning score was 24 under and 27 under for 4 rounds. And the course, it didn't feel that much harder than Mullingar. It was a similar sort of course, but the way they set it up was that you had to shoot 8 under to be the best score of the day. I went round in 12 under for the week and thought I played pretty good. But in hindsight, there's probably a few points in the round where you could have pushed on and scored a lot lower. So I think long-term Ireland golfers are as good as anyone in the world. So I think there's an idea growing up in amateur golf that the courses have to be set up significantly more scoreable. Not easy. You can't have 380-yard par 4s everywhere, but more scoreable with maybe easier pins and more accessible pins that you're encouraging guys to shoot 6 under on a more regular basis, and then that brings you more into professional golf in the long run. That's just sort of my opinion, but I guess probably a few people would agree with me over that over the years. So, but in America, the systems they have in America are just way above anything we have in Ireland or probably Europe, in terms of the new development of golf with nutritionists and training and routines and all that sort of stuff. So they're two different aspects, but there's people who go to America and hate it after 3 months and 4 months and can't do it. They'll come back and still go on to be very good golfers. So it's definitely, people will suit different routes, and you just sort of hope you pick the right one that suits you.
And seeing as you didn't go down that route, went to university, studied with obviously probably a broader, maybe more rounded view of golf as a result of that. There's college life, which is different maybe here than it might be abroad. You might be more comfortable with it. But at what point did then that, you mentioned football, Gaelic, bit of hurling as well. At what point did the switch flick from I'm like, I can play them, I can do them, I probably have friends who are in, and there's a team environment to it, but at what point did it go, right, I think I probably need to nestle into this and push on?
I would say the age of as early as like 14, 15 is where I probably knew. Okay. I was like, I was showing less interest. I was playing to a decent level in football at sort of younger ages, but that is where I never sort of noticed I didn't have the interest in going to a Saturday morning and playing and things like that. So, and then gradually over each summer it was more and more interest in golf, and just keep on playing that, and you would spend all day, in the summers from 8 to 8 in the summer days. So probably, and then from 15, 16, I only played golf then. It was my only sport then competitively.
And did you kind of have a good sense that I'm going to be good here? Because I suppose it's a lot when you're maybe a bit more rounded. Yeah. The sacrifices are huge as opposed to someone who's just golf. You probably want to know that there is a bit of a pot of gold at the bottom of the rainbow in that sense, because you have to go through a bit of sacrifice to get to there, really, don't you?
Yeah, I probably in sort of underage golf never had a specific structure in terms of I have to do this to this. I just went out and played and enjoyed it, and probably always thought I was slightly better than what I actually did in underage golf. But no, I was thereabouts with like Ulster panels and Ulster senior panels up until 20 or 21. I think was the first time I made one. So it was always a decent level of golf, but there was obviously guys on Irish panels and things like that at that age. But I always thought I probably was had more sort of potential than I was probably showing at that age. But again, going to university and playing was a similar idea. I was good, but didn't really have that good of scores. And then after university, took sort of 3 months where I just practiced and did nothing else. That was the only thing I did for 3 months. And then first tournament, you come in, you shot I think 9 under for 2 rounds. It was nearly like sort of flicking a switch. But it just shows you that's all golf is time, effort, and just repeating the same action over and over again.
And it's kind of like the old adage, like it only takes 10 years to be an overnight success. I'm coming to 2022, which is arguably it has been your strongest year ever. Did you have a sense that the 2022 was coming, because there was a lot in it?
Yeah, in terms of after I was working in Sunderland in England for 2.5, 3 years, and then after I left that job and came back, year by year it was steadily getting better. So the first year was competing in tournaments. Next year I made the Ireland team. Next year I made the 6-man team. The year after that was COVID, and then it made Home International's European team, and then Eisenhower team this year. So it sort of stepped up again, but again hadn't won a championship. But I get three runner-ups maybe, or 2 runner-ups and a 3rd place along the way. So it was getting steadily closer and closer. But to happen on the last tournament of the year was, you were maybe less expecting it as you go throughout the season. You sort of think the first one of the season you're going to win that, and then as you go along, your probably expectations might deep down be a wee bit less. So to be the last tournament of the season, to actually get the win that transformed the year was pretty nice.
Well, no, because I wanted to go back to the start, because of the 2022 season. I think it probably would have kicked off for you. The first win was actually the first Ian Bamford Scratch Cup in Portrush, which, like, the field on that, like the entry alone to that was +3 for a Scratch Cup, which is obviously absurd. And a really, really strong field within it. Was it a win early? And I don't care what anyone says, like a win in anything early in your season probably focuses you down to accelerate. Now, the fact that it was a Scratch Cup, I don't think diminishes. Maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth either, but maybe set a tone where get off to a quick start. Obviously, you're out in South Africa, had played well, as you said. We're now 12, 13 under so the golf was obviously in a good place. But could that be overstated, the importance of winning early, or less so?
No, yeah, I think I do agree with you in terms of winning anything, whether or not it's like your club championships against, you might be the best player in the field by 4 shots. Even winning that, to sort of be able to play the last few holes and get over the line and win in any sort of level is key to winning at the next sort of the level up. So the Portrush Scratch Cup was a brilliant start. As I said, I sort of mentioned it briefly earlier on, I tore ligaments my left ankle at the end of South Africa, which had me out for missed Euro Nations and just about got back for the West. So it was nice to go straight into that with probably no expectation, because I didn't know how well I was going to play after being out for sort of 8 to 12 weeks. But to win, especially I was leading turns out by about 5 or 6, I think, with a few holes to go. I didn't know this, and then down the stretch made a couple of bogeys and made a double down 16, I think. And then all of a sudden there was only 1 in it, so I had to power the last 3. So even that mindset that you have to play for any sort of level of tournament, to be able to finish off the last 3 in Portrush in the wind, really 3 tough holes, to get that win, I think definitely set a standard for the year. And again, it would have been great to win more, but no matter what you do in a season, you're always going to say, oh, you could have won that, or you could have done this. So I think starting off with that tournament was pretty big for the year,
And so that sets the year up. Obviously, you've now got kind of an early win on a really, really good course. I want to talk about the island and how that was. And I want to know what happened at the island where you were obviously leading, and you had a very kind of a tumultuous back nine to the last round, and Colm Campbell came and kind of nipped it from you by parring in. But how beneficial was that actually to go on to the rest of the season? Because look, it was obviously quite disappointing. That is one. Did that leave you in a better or worse place after it? Obviously there was disappointment, but where was your head at coming into that? Or maybe describe kind of the back nine to us and what it's like in such a pressured environment against a very, very, and it effectively was down to probably 2 or 3 of you at the time. Yeah. What that was like, because it was dramatic to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing that if I won that, the season may well have been completely different. It's hard to say at the time that whatever sort of happens in the tournament happens in the tournament, and you know, it might be a blessing in disguise in the future. At the time, it was still very early on in the season, so from my point of view, I was like 6. I think I was 6 under through 11, or 6 under through. 6 under through. I think I birdied 13 to go 6 under for the round.
You were 6 under through 13 on the island the last day, was it?
Yeah. So
that's absurd.
So I was well behind in terms of, well, it wasn't as if I was favourite to go into the last round or anything. So I think I was 6 under through 13 in the last round. So the only thing was that it's quite hard to finish. It's quite hard to finish around the islands. As you said, it was probably the hardest course for the year for the championships. So even to finish that round, never mind the tournament, had another level on top of it. But yeah, I played most of it pretty well. I had a really bad shot on 15's the par 5, is it? Yeah. Had a really bad tee shot, got a bit unlucky, and just hit a really bad pitch, just bladed a pitch over the back of the green, and that led to a double. But on the way in, I didn't hit one bad shot after that for the last 3 holes. Yeah. Had a good drive down 17, just rolled into the bunker. But other than that pitch, I had no issue with the last round, and actually got up and down myself in the last from short left as well. So it was definitely more positives out of the amateur this year. The Irish Am compared to negatives. If you sort of look at the last round, it was one shot that was destructive that caused a double. Other than that, I still shot probably the best round in the last round by sort of 2 or 3 shots. Yeah. So yeah, you can take positives out of anything. You can take negatives out of anything. My idea was that I was still second in a playoff. It hurt at the time. One of those ones now at the end of the year, you quite like to see the trophy on top of the shelf, but it's the same in any competitive sport. You're going to lose a lot more than you win. So golf's probably the worst for that. So you just accept when you lose or when you win. Mm-hmm. And then the run of form I went in for the next 3-4 weeks, whether or not I would have had that run of form if I won that, possibly not. But yeah, it was definitely tough to take at the time. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, like I just think that it probably came at a time of the season. If you had won it, might you have taken the foot off the gas? Given what was to come, there was a lot of important events that were coming down the track for you, and I was just wondering, it's very easy to find resolve in a near miss where, as you said, it wasn't through a collection of bad golf that was done, and not necessarily even the 1 hole in 15, because you were, as you said, you're 6 under to 13 to put yourself into it, as opposed to kind of sitting 3 shots in the lead, sitting on that lead on round 3 and going into it. But then you get to obviously the Holmes and the Eisenhower and the team elements of it, and that was huge. Like to be down to the best 3. You're effectively the best 3 amateurs in the country between you now. But I suppose I still think that there's probably 5 guys who are vying for the best 3 in the country, really, isn't there? Yeah,
that's the tough thing with the Eisenhower. It's such a small team that you could arguably pick it whether you're going to pick it over the year or pick it over 3-4 weeks, or the person in form, or the whole. It's just a really hard team to pick. I'm just happy I don't have to pick it.
Yeah, so the Eisenhower is the obviously world amateur team. Yeah, that was in Golf National in Paris.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones where if you said at the start of the year you would make that team, Europeans, home internationals, all that sort of stuff. Then from a team basis, and then so the St Andrews Trophy as well, the GBNI team, I made every team I could have made this year. So that sort of gives you an overall consistency, verification that you're actually playing well throughout the year at that level. So again, as you said, one shot here or there throughout certain tournaments, you can take it a wee bit easier when you have that sort of, verification that you are within the top 3 in Ireland or top 9 in GBNI. So making those teams is the goal of pretty much all the amateur golfers. So to get that recognition this year was definitely a bit of a confidence boost.
So you accelerate now, and I suppose you obviously played quite well. You played very well over at the Eisenhower when you from the St Andrews Trophy as well. You're picked on that. You're just back from the concession, which was effectively almost like a mid-am amateur Ryder Cup, which is from a European selection that plays the US. But yourself and Hugh Foley went on an old adventure. It's probably the best way to describe it. How the mid-am in the US, how did it even come about? Because it wouldn't be the most trodden of paths.
No, so it is sort of one of those stories where it went from nothing, 0 to 100 very quickly. So mid-am in Ireland's over 30.
Yeah.
Mid-am everywhere else is over 25.
Right.
So I never knew this until 6 months ago. So I assumed mid-am was 30 everywhere else, so you couldn't play them. I think it was Mark Boucher at Lytham this year, brought it up to say, it's on Erin Hills, it'd be a cool week to go out and play. We should have a look at it. And we were like, yeah, we probably should have a look at it. And then when it came down to it, sort of out of the next sort of 3 months, how the golf went, I think there was me and Hugh at the end sort of said, will we go for it? And it's a pretty expensive trip and takes a bit of organising. So we sort of went from not playing at all, never heard of it, to booking this sort of 2.5 week sort of trip to America to play it pretty quickly. And then the two of us obviously went out, and the level of competition in terms of standard and world ranking is pretty much the equivalent of the St Andrews Links Trophy, which is like our probably 3rd top event of the year. Yeah. So to have that sort of level of competition that you don't even know you're eligible to play was a bit mad. But as it turned out, obviously it was a sort of a week from sort of your dreams to the way it went. Everything just went perfect really for the week.
Is it so? You've obviously had in the year to that point. Obviously, there have been huge individual and team events, the British and Lytham Trophy, etc. From a personal perspective, Links Trophy, St Andrews Links Trophy, and then obviously the Eisenhower and the Eisenhower from a team perspective. So where was this sitting? Like you're getting onto the plane in Chicago. Like how seriously are you taking it at that point? Because you're financially committed because it's a big old trip. But where's the head? I was like kind of looking at Hugh, going, "Come on, if we knuckle down, we can win it." Or is it like, "Come on, we'll just go and have a really good couple of weeks"?
Probably a bit of both. We went into the slightly unknown in terms of we don't know what the standard's going to be like. It could be grand in terms of we'll turn up and we'll be fine, or you could turn up and the standard's going to be better than anything you've ever played in. So the standard was very good. So you had to play at the cut. I think it was 2 over for 2 rounds, and in terms of difficulty of courses, it's right up there with as difficult as it would be, and especially the American style of courses, firm greens, fast, very slopey, thick rough that we're not used to. So in terms of qualifying, it was
like it's a US Open course.
The
Erin Hills
was a US Open course. Yeah. So in terms of difficulty and standard of field, it was. I'm not going to say it was better than we thought it was going to be, but probably the top 30 in the field were as good as you'll play in pretty much any amateur tournament back here.
Because they're I suppose the age profile it's not like there's guys who could be only two years removed from actually being in college, realistically.
Yeah, well, like Hugh was, I think, maybe the second youngest in the field. So Hugh had just turned 25. Yeah. There was 2 or 3 other 25-year-olds in there.
We still think of Hugh being quite young.
Yeah, which he is.
Yeah,
you're saying he's older, I guess, but I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
If he's watching us.
Well, yeah, I suppose he's been like we see him a lot.
No,
you know.
yeah, what a joke.
So we're.
But you had even like ex-pros as well who were maybe Corn Ferry. I played a guy who was on Corn Ferry for 3 or 4 years and then turned back to amateur. Yeah. So you're playing those sorts of guys who can still play golf. Obviously, do a very high standard, but you would never have heard of them. They're not on the world rankings. Yeah. So you had a lot of those guys that made it pretty tough. But I think.
Were you under the radar? Did anyone know who you were at this point?
I don't think so. No,
because you come off you're coming from a team that had finished quite well in the amateur team championships, and obviously Hugh had just missed out in that team, but he'd still have a fairly illustrious CV. Were you unknown quantities? Were they looking at you going, "What are you guys doing here?" Or what?
I'm not too sure because in the mid amateur world rankings, I was about 4th or 5th in the world.
All right.
Like Hugh was about 6th or 7th. So, like in terms of rankings, you would have been right up there in terms of that. So, but you never know, who knows you or who doesn't know you. But in terms of sort of going over to it, it was awesome. My girlfriend came over I was over there for 3 weeks. She came over the week of the tournament, and then we were staying in Chicago for a week after. So, I sort of was like, oh well, I've got a holiday here anyway. So
yeah, if I get knocked out first round, I'll be okay.
It's fine. Yeah, it's one of those other ones where you go out and just enjoy it. So. And we were both sort of we met up with a friend, Greg Zeman, who lives in North Chicago before, and he brought us out to play a few golf courses, and it was just like an enjoyable, nice time.
Like we're getting to kind of trip of a lifetime.
Yes,
places at this stage, and we're not even into the tournament.
Exactly. Yeah. So even if we went over the week before, it was really enjoyable. So you had to just say, oh well, we're here now, just enjoy it and try to play as well as you can. And the way it worked out in the end, that we obviously met each other in the final was, probably 1,000,000 to 1. I think it was 264 in the field.
And here's two lads that are from 2 hours away from each other that end up in Erin Hills in the final. So you both pretty much cruised through qualifying. Then you started to tick people off at a fairly decent clip. I think you got rid of a few quite high ranking players, both of you, quite early. You probably had a tougher path to it, just because you finished a little bit further up in terms of the stroke play qualifying, obviously. Yeah. But at what point were you kind of looking at each other, obviously other sides of the draw, and kind of going, this, like, we're in, did you mention it? That we're in with a punt here. Like.
We jokingly mentioned it at the start. We were like, well, it'd be ideal if we could make the cut. Separate side of the draws, play each other in the final. But it was obviously a joking remark. But in the qualifying, I looked like I eased through the qualifying. I was actually 5 over through 6 in the first round of the qualifying on the so-called easy course. Yeah. I just flew sort of 8 hours across the world here, and you'd be home after 9 holes. So managed to finish that 2 over, which was still outside the cut, and then had a 5 under second round, which moved me up 70 places, I think, in the second round. But so that was relatively easy, if you like, going through the stroke play. And then maybe I'd say 3 or 4 of the matches were 5 and 4, 6 and 5 for both of us were relatively straightforward, if you like. And then when you get into those last 16 stages, it was, a 3 and 2 victory might look straightforward, but you could be 1 up, 1 in it, and then you may convert 1 birdie, 1 bogey, so it can change very quickly. But Hugh, well, it seemed like Hugh was definitely sort of cruising through. When you're playing your own match, it doesn't feel as easy, but he seemed to be cruising through every match, and he was just playing ahead of me. So every time I would come up 16, he'd be standing there at the top of the green, being like, "Come on here, you get a lift in here and you go home." So then I would finish shortly after him, barring one. I think went in the 20th in one of the matches. I was 2 up with 2 to go, and lost 17-18, and then held about a 6-footer to keep it going on the first, and then had like a 20-footer for birdie on the 20th hole. So that was a bit of a wobble of the week. And then the semis I just played pretty well, and then obviously the final was a pretty good standard as well. Yeah,
because the semis you finished in the morning, and then you were out against each other for the first round of match play in the afternoon. Was that right? Yeah. So that probably made it easier that you didn't have to sleep in the same house and go into 36 holes on the following day. Yeah. That it maybe, there's a bit of momentum to the golf anyway. But we were having a chat on the course earlier, and not that I will ever be in that scenario, but I had reckoned that it was easier for both of you playing each other because of how well you know each other, as opposed to getting someone who you've no idea what they're like whether they're just a really consistent player or someone who's really streaky and will have 10 bogeys with 8 birdies. You probably went down the route of saying that, actually, it was probably easier being a known quantity. Because look, you're playing them in maybe 4 or 5 times a year anyway. So you know exactly what is going to take to beat him, and that you probably have the game to beat him, and
vice
probably
versa.
vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think as I said, we mentioned this earlier on the course, that the level of the sort of tournament and what was at risk probably didn't feel as intense or as important because we were playing against each other. As you said, we played against each other a lot, whereas if you were playing against an American you never met in America, all of a sudden it probably would feel like you're playing for this sort of championship. So in that terms, it helped the golf. I think both of us. It was a good standard final for the 36 holes, and I think in the back of your mind was, well, one of us is going to win it now. So why not me? Why not you? I'm sure he was thinking the same thing. But if he's going to win it, I could win it. So it definitely was relaxing, I think, for both of us to play the final against each other and in each other's company, and just sort of relax and enjoy it as much as we could.
Because I suppose if you are playing someone that you don't necessarily know, there's no interaction whatsoever. Because, and I want to get onto this because of what's at stake. I think, at what point did you realise that there are spots in the US Open, an invite to the Masters, and which will hopefully be on the way quite soon, but it will be there. But was that starting to come into both of your heads, or did that maybe happen at the end of the first 18 where you're actually, you in that instance were sleeping on a lead? Was it like, oh God,
it was funny. It was, I've always sort of thought that in terms of the amateur. It's like, I don't know how guys tee up in the amateur final with all that goes with it, and how do you even hit a ball, or how do you play golf under that pressure? So it was funny how back in your mind it was. I'm trying to make it in the back of your mind, but it wasn't at the forefront for most of the week, to the extent you didn't really want to mention it. The more you mention something, the more you think about it. So we just sort of got on with it and played and tried our best not to think about it, I think. And it probably didn't really sink in at any point that that's what you were playing for.
In the final, it didn't sink
not really. Like, you knew that's what you got, and people said to you that's what you got, but you didn't really think, oh well, I'm definitely teeing it up there now, even with the US Open as well. So, but it was. I think you were trying to condition yourself to think like that. So it was never sort of, that sort of one where you're a kid and you're on the putting green, you're like, oh, you've got this to win the Open, or it's like, I had a putt on, I had about 35 footer on 16 for birdie.
In the first round,
in the second round of the final to win 3 and 2. And it was downhill fast. It took like 10 seconds to get to the hole. But with about 5 foot to go, it looked perfect. And then that was about the only time I thought. I was like, if that goes in, then I've won this, and then you're playing all this, and you're playing the Masters and the US Open, and then like heavily lipped out. it's like that's the first time I've thought about it. Like, you're trying not to think about this and all the way in, and then thankfully made par down 17. That was good enough. But it's funny when you're in a situation. Sometimes you're just a bit numb to probably what's going on and what's at risk. So, but it was nice to do it.
But going back a bit, actually, just you went in 2 up. No, you were actually more on after the first round.
After I was 2 up,
You were 2 up after the first. What was that night to sleep like? Because you were in the to put into context, you were riding in the same car, sleeping in the same house, having breakfast opposite each other. Look, what was that vibe like?
Again, it was pretty boring or uneventful in terms of we were staying off at 7 in the morning, so we were up at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning.
So you're not getting much sleep.
And then you get up, you're knackered, so you go to bed, you go to sleep straight away. You get up, practice, play the semis, have a bit of food, play the final, finishes at maybe 5 or something like that. So have a bit of food, get back, 8 o'clock in the evening, you're knackered. So there wasn't a lot of time to sit about doing nothing.
So no mood to chat anyway, really.
There was, we both obviously looked at each other and said, there's no point talking about golf because neither of us want to talk about golf at this stage. So the guy we stayed with was, really fun, sort of chatty guy, which helped, and he was putting us up for the week. So he sort of helped the situation in terms of, he'll chat about anything.
These
so
two boys aren't
we
gonna
sort of
start
joined in and sort of chatted and
getting
had
to
a bit of
blows
crack.
here, like,
yeah. So and then we went to bed probably 9 o'clock, and then you're asleep by 10 and up at 4, half 4 the next morning again. So it was, thankfully it wasn't one of those ones where you had to kill 8 hours in what to do. But yeah, it was nice the way it sort of, it was only one night we had to stay with each other in terms of sitting at the dinner table playing each other. But it was all very casual and relaxed and enjoyable. But you wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to sort of do it every week, you know. We all sort of had good fun and enjoyed it, and we're sort of happy to be in this situation at the time.
And then it gets to, as you said, you lip out in 16, you win it on 17, and you've got obviously your girlfriend there. There's people you know. It's not like you're completely two aliens over there. Yeah, like you've got a few people around you. At what point did it go, oh my God, oh Jesus, I'm going to Augusta, or I'm going to Cherry Hills for the US? But even actually the amateur events it gets you into as well, like USAM now gets open, the US Open, the Masters, and probably a plethora of other invite-only amateur events in the US, which as you're going to one very soon. Did it sink in? Were you just exhausted? Were you on a high? Where was the head? Because obviously you're just after beating Hugh. So there's two of you traveling, and one of you has devastated. He's missed out, and then there's the other one who's on as big a high in terms of golf, outside of winning the British Am, maybe in terms of rewards.
Yeah, British Am, the British Am and US Am are probably the only two events. So as you said, it was that sort of idea that just after it finished, I had about a 4-footer for par, and he sort of conceded it. So as soon as he conceded it, was sort of, it was like, that's it. And then you're sort of, relatively speechless for about a minute after it. Hugh was sort of talking to me, and I was like, I wasn't saying anything back to him. I was like, I want to say something.
Trying to say sorry. Right?
It was like good game, but to have that sort of minute after where it did sink in pretty quickly in terms of what it sort of meant was nice. And then after that, it was obviously relatively quiet because, as I said, it was me and Hugh were staying there, so we stayed the next night together and had a couple of beers, but nothing too late. But yeah, you're wary of not wanting to be in someone's face in terms of those different highs and lows of after a golf tournament as well.
It's probably at that point you wished you weren't playing someone that you knew. That then you could actually, like, there's probably, you can be a little bit more exuberant. Like if you're back at the house, there could be a massive piss up, for want of a better word.
Possibly.
Not saying that didn't happen subsequently, but I know, I kind of feel, I think that everyone felt that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, thankfully there's access to these things now where everyone can follow shot by shot. So I think everyone was kind of feeling it. It was the people were thrilled for you, but equally as disappointed for Hugh, who has probably had a great year as well and was.
Yeah. And the same sort of idea is there's been twice. So Hugh beat me in the North this year, whereas I was relatively in control for most of the tournament and lost it by one. But again, he said to me after, it was like, almost apologised to me after the North and sort of like, I feel like I stole this one off you, and I was like, you had the low score, you won. Yeah, but again, that's pretty, it's nice to sort of have that.
Like the amateur for you, you had it, and it was not saying taken away from you, but there is the disappointment, and that's why I wanted to get to this point eventually, is that, like, I suppose there's an element of ruthlessness that you want to go and win as many, and it will be at the cost of people that you know and that you're very, very friendly with.
Yeah. And it's that idea in amateur golf, is that it is overall the same people you're going to play against pretty much all year. So you're going to come up against them, if not this week, not the next week, two or 3 weeks later, you're going to meet each other eventually. So, if the time you win, you're not overly, sportsmanship like the person you've just beat, you're going to get it right back at you 3 weeks later. So, if everyone's,
don't be
respecting each other, then it's going to come around and bite you at some point in the future. So, as I said, me and you have never had any issues at all like that. It's always been very, very friendly, and I've always enjoyed playing against each other.
I think the first time I met you was actually in a putting competition against you on the practice green in Sligo,
Yeah.
the night before. So that will always still be the relationship, which is brilliant, I suppose. We were walking up on the fairs, and I had actually forgotten about the Masters and the Open, etc. Because I suppose we associate you with obviously winning the Mid-Am. You bring home the trophy, which has arrived back, I believe you're saying.
It arrived there a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
So, how was it celebrated in Malone?
Yeah, it was good. So we were there. They had a dinner for me specifically, where we had sort of 40 or 50 people I sort of know quite well were there. And the trophy was meant to be there for that, but wasn't. But anyway, that was fine. So we had a sort of...
It'll probably only get drank out of it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The USGA will be they probably did that on purpose. They're like, well, not send it out 2 or 3 months late, so they can't do that.
We've seen what happened when Irish have won majors or something.
So we had a dinner that night, which was really nice. And then they had the annual club dinner at Malone as well, where they had, a big crowd at it, and it was nice to sort of have the mentions and things like that, or like the acknowledgement of achieving something. And then it's Malone have it's always been a great place for me to play. I've been there 5 years, I think now, in terms of practice, and the facilities we have at Malone is probably one of the best in the area, really. So I've plenty of really good friends in Malone, so it's been great over the past couple of months to have a good few nights out to sort of celebrate the year.
No, the reason I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I wanted to bring it back to it, we were walking up, I think it was the 4th or 5th today, and you were saying that you're going over to an event very soon in Orlando, and you might just slip up and play around in Augusta, and you just threw it out there as if it was like, kind of, I might just tip down to Malone and play with the lads. And it was only then I remembered. It was like, oh, Jesus, 2023 for you is going to be, by the time you get to June, you'll have June, you'll have a fairly significant bucket list set of courses ticked off, starting obviously with the Masters, which, like, how weird is this going to be?
Yeah, as you said, as funny as the Masters sort of event is that you're always afraid to say anything until the invites come out in the post, but avoiding that. If the invite comes through, it's nothing you would ever really imagine ever playing. Even talking about it is weird. Like 2 years, it was funny. Actually, I was talking to TJ Ford from Sligo about this, and he was like, well, if you ever get the chance to play Augusta, when you get the chance, will you go play it? And I was like, what do you mean, when you get the chance? I was like, that's, what are the chances of actually playing the golf course? Yeah. So, but to play at Masters, it is pretty hard to actually talk about it seriously, because it's so far-fetched in terms of amateur golf to play it there. You just want to, it'd be nice to play the course. That's my sort of...
Your practice round is sorted as well. Shane Lowry had it on his own Instagram, as he's like, the fourball is now guaranteed basically. Well, once the invite comes, we will obviously say pending the invite, but your fourball match, so I think bring a few quid. Apparently those matches get quite serious.
I don't know how official that fourball is yet, but again, it would be nice to
so that's you, Rory, Seamus Power and Shane Lowry.
That would be the four sort of Irish, Northern Irish guys. So that would be obviously a class to have that experience alone to play with those guys and all that sort of stuff, but I think I'll play for probably 10% of the winnings. They can have their full bets, and I'll just chip in with 10%.
No, you can max out, as apparently as an amateur, you can max out, what, 700 is it? That you can leave.
Is that what you can win?
Well, I thought that was the number. But no, even to get that recognition though from him straight away, like, I think he was one of the first people to have something out, as in to congratulate you. Was that something that subsequently came, and does it reassure you now? Obviously, you've played Challenge Tour events, but now you're going to something which is, like, to all intents and purposes, we saw what the Open was like in Portrush. It's a circus of, like, monstrous proportions. Like, the US Open will have close on 300,000 people at it. Augusta is Augusta, and all that comes with that. Is there parts of it that makes you very nervous about it, apprehensive, or is it just all excitement now?
It's tough to say in terms of excitement or apprehension. I'd say you'll have every feeling. Yeah. My idea is that it's actually almost better not thinking about it, because you don't want to build up this whole idea of this and this. The way I'm trying to look at it, or hopefully will look at it, is that you've nothing to lose in terms of playing. there's plenty of amateurs who've played in the past and shot high scores and come last, but no one cares. So you've got to give yourself that sort of wiggle room and relaxation to say that, if you go and have a bad hole or a bad few holes, no one really cares. The expectation is just to play there and enjoy it.
Do you get that sense more of an excitement for Augusta versus the US Open? Because I suppose it's going to be an interesting one, because you're going to go into the US Open this year having had I'm going to say bucket list experience, because I feel like that is for us, it's something different to the US Open. And is to be enjoyed, really enjoyed, whereas the US Open, we look at it as something that's endured. I feel like the way people, it's a complete, it's just a war of attrition. It looks always like a war of attrition, whereas like Augusta is so green, it's so lush, it's so picturesque. It happens for us at a nice time of the year where we watch it nicely in the evenings and kind of. Whereas the US Open, we get it in the middle of summer where it looks all burnt out. Greens are running at 14 and the rough is up to your ears. So best of luck with it, by the way. So is it that sense that you've got, I'll go and really enjoy that one and see what happens at the US Open? Or have you even got to that point yet, actually?
I don't want
to put words in your mouth.
I know what you do. I know what you mean by that in terms of the Masters is just so, you can qualify for the US Open. It's a bit like the Open, is that you can go to the Open qualifying and anyone qualify.
Yeah, we could go and try and get into
go
it.
And play and
exactly.
So it's obviously still very difficult, but that is a possibility, whereas Masters is just such a difficult tournament to ever play.
It's a tiny field.
It's just sort of the history behind it. It's only, 90 people play? So, the Masters is so high on the pedestal that even though the US Open is probably below it, it's still obviously a massive tournament. It's a major. So
some of the players say, like Brooks Koepka says, it's the easiest of the majors to win, the Masters, because it effectively has a field of there's probably 10 amateurs in total. There's probably 20 lads who are past it, and then you've got 20 lads who hate the course because they don't like it. So you're left with kind of a list of 50. Now, I just wonder, is it for you? Are you kind of going, Jesus? Do you know what? It doesn't, and obviously the scoring recently has been low, but now that you look at objectively from a golfing perspective and going, do you know what? Like, you drive it straight there and you get it around well, you're going to be, how far off could you? How realistic could you be then to ambition wise?
Yeah, I think the thing with both weeks is that, although you want to go and enjoy the experience and sort of that, you still want to play it as a golf tournament. It's not as if you're turning up to shoot 80 and go, happy days.
Go to the gift shop.
I'll go to the gift shop, get a few t-shirts and go home. If that happens, you're still that's going to be enjoyable. But the idea is that you want to treat it as a week that you're going to play golf in a golf tournament against other golfers and try not to overthink it for both weeks. But the Masters is one of those ones that it's obviously known as not a first-timers golf course. No one's ever won it the first time. It is, you learn things every year around it, so you want to enjoy that and play as well as you can. But I sort of look at the US Open as, I think LA isn't actually it's one of the shorter courses on the US Open Rota as well. It will be tight, fast.
It's LA Country Club, isn't it?
LACC,
yes.
So in terms of playing the golf course, it's playable for an amateur. You don't have to hit it 360 yards, or you don't have to be this sort of really strong golfer. You can't get it around as an amateur. So it's you don't want to sort of put any expectation either way, but it's just treated like any other golf tournament, trying to be as relaxed as you can, playing whatever you can play, and then whatever you shoot. And if it's a good score, happy days. If not, then as you said, you'll be able to get over it pretty quickly.
It's coming at a time as well, and I suppose because not many people get to talk to people who have played Augusta or in the US Open, never mind in the Masters itself. Has anyone reached out to you from that yet, in terms of offering maybe a bit of advice or saying, listen, I can put you in touch with people, or have you had conversations with people who have played it? And I'm talking about both the US Open and the Masters in that regard, or has that happened yet? Bear in mind, we're a long way out.
Yeah, so in terms of that, in terms of the idea of directly talking about specific things, not yet, But again, as you said, it is still pretty early to be talking about preparing for a golf course. But in terms of, with the Masters in Augusta, even last week in Valderrama with the Concession Cup, on the American side of things, they're obviously very well connected in terms of different golf courses, and they were offering advice and help in terms of getting you in contact with this guy who knows this guy, and they know the course very well. So I'm hopefully pretty confident in the next couple of months, or the next sort of 2-3 months, that you can get in contact with someone who can sort of help you out around the golf courses, where to play, how to prepare, all that sort of stuff. So, but I do have a couple of guys I know pretty well that hopefully will be able to help me out in preparing for the weeks. And then obviously with Neil Manship, the Golf Ireland head of Golf Ireland, the elite sort of golf side of it. He's obviously Shane Lowry's coach. They've been there 7-8 times over the years, so he'll obviously be quite hands-on with Shane for the week. But
I'm sure
he'll probably have a bit of time for me as well. And, he'll give me his knowledge and experience and how to play it, and I'm sure Shane will have some sort of input in that as well. So it'll be nice to get the advice off the experienced guys who've been there and done that, and again, just listen to whatever they've got to say. Obviously not with just that specific week, but to learn off those guys in general is pretty invaluable access.
So hypothetically, a cool world, you make the cut in Augusta. I think top 16 get invited back, don't they?
Is that what it is? I
think it's top 16 and get invited back. Is it? Top 11. So top 11 get invited back. You then go and you have a really good. So say you just make the cut in Augusta and you get your 4 days, but you get to LACC, course really suits you, really good finish. How close would the head be then to saying, while the amateur game is really good, so I've got my 2 majors out of it. Yeah. Where will turning pro? Because you're a different profile, different age profile to a lot of guys. Yeah. Life experience is there. Have a career to fall back on. Some might say you're actually way more prepared to turn pro now. Even take those majors out, you're way more prepared now, in that it's not the be all and end all, but there's a fairly significant safety net underneath you for you to, even if it was a challenge tour card, for example, where it's 3 months of an off season, you can actually go and work for 3 months and make yourself very financially secure to get through that time without it sacrificing or eating hugely into your dedication to golf as a career. So put you in that position next July. How far do you think your head is away from turning down that road? Yeah, I mean,
as I said, sort of at the start there about sort of university and different routes to do it, it's not the be all and end all to be a professional golfer or not. I'm sure I'll enjoy myself either way, no matter if I do or don't. If you have that hypothetical situation where you have a really good week in both LA and Augusta, if you have those, it gives you more. I think it's purely confidence based, not in terms of sort of what you might get out of it.
That's kind of what I went. It was like that reassures you.
Yeah, if you can make the cut in either of those, you've just made the cut against the best field of any golfers in the world. And given it's only 1 week, but you're going to take huge confidence out of it if you can achieve that. So that's pretty much the goal, I would say, for both weeks, is to try to make the cut. It's realistically, you're not going to win this thing. You're going to go out and try to just play as good as you can, try to make the cut. But I'm sure that would give you sort of huge confidence going forward. My goal next year mainly is Walker Cup at the end of the year in September. So barring probably a miracle, I won't be pro before Walker Cup next year. And then the idea is to play a Walker Cup at St Andrews would be, a pretty special week. And whether or not the opportunity arises, or you have, sponsors or some sort of help towards professional game after that, if it's an option, it's an option. If not, then I'll probably steadily go back into working a wee bit more and still playing a bit of competitive amateur golf.
So you'd have to just settle for the Walker Cup in St Andrews, like. So
if that's the worst case scenario, then I'll be pretty happy with it going forward.
Yeah. So listen, thank you so much for the time. Two things we wish you best of luck with. Best of luck with the 2023 season. Best of luck with the demands for tickets from all of your friends, family, etc. for Augusta, because while the golf might be hard, I'm fairly sure dealing with that part of it will be significantly tougher. But no, we're delighted to, one, see your game today. See, I suppose I've always been trying to explain to Jonny like the difference between really, really good players and normal good players, and I think you've kind of given us an insight to it today, but also I suppose the level-headedness that you show, I think, towards the bigger events that you've got coming probably stands you in really good stead, and the absolute best of luck when you do get over there. We're going to be watching pretty closely, but Matt, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for having me. It was a good day.